Have you ever gone to the mountains in China? Have you ever walked the path of travel's pale and ever gone down that path full of luxury items and luxurious kind of sacred Buddhist meditative structural linings for the own self going for what it is experiencing in their particular life? Have you ever gone down that path? Ever found that stag that I heard cry? That I found a wandering stag, I heard him cry through the crimson leaves, through the trees, and finding that sacred space. Well, that is what happens in China in February. What? That doesn't make any sense. Just my made-up story. Anyway, that is kind of what comes to mind when I think of mid-February, is what goes on in China. What is the weather like in China? Are there beautiful mountains? Are there beautiful scenery? Is there this kind of a thing going on here? So what goes on in China, really? So, I'm going to be talking today about an eclipse that's happening it happened already, the middle of February of this year, 2026. It happened February 17th of this year. And it happens at 28 degrees of Aquarius. And it happens at 6:03 a.m. Central Time. And it happened at 7:03 Eastern Standard Time. Well, why do I care about an eclipse like this that already has happened in the past? Well, because these eclipses repeat. It's an eclipse story. It's an eclipse cycle. The new moon solar eclipse in Leo is coming up tomorrow on August 12th. So I just figured, why not do this video, bringing us right back to that that February 17th eclipse. So I'm going to get into the themes. This is a video that I would have made back in February, but I didn't because I only did one aspect a week at the time, and the Saturn-Neptune conjunction happening 3 days later trumped this eclipse. And this was the eclipse where I started my podcast. Around this time I started this podcast. I named it The Vastness of Google. Now I name it The Cosmic Sky, which I like way better because it's much more original. It's much more clear what I'm doing. So, I named this podcast that, and I have this podcast with, with what is going on here. This is, the name of the, the name of the podcast is The Cosmic Sky, and I recorded my first episode the day before this eclipse happened exactly. So, eclipses initiate us into new points of our lives, bring us into new ways of being, new ways of living, new ways of seeing the world, on our spiritual journeys. That is really what they bring us into. So this video is part one of a series of videos which I'll be doing on this eclipse. This is part one. I'm going to be doing part two tomorrow on August 12th, the day of the solar eclipse in Leo. I want to cover all these eclipses that go on the Aquarius Leo axis. Maybe I'll cover the Pisces Virgo axis eclipses also, and do some past videos, record some past episodes that I didn't record. So if I were to go back, I would start this podcast right when I get out of the hospital. I would just start doing it weekly for a couple weeks and then get to the daily in March. But anyway, I just wasn't aware of certain things and it was all fresh and new. And so, yeah, very, very exciting times. So, getting into 12 signs tomorrow, but delving into this particular eclipse. Eclipses initiate us into new points in our lives, new points into our spiritual journeys, into our way of being. These eclipses are passageways. They are gateways into the new. Like we're suddenly going on a path and boom, a new path just comes up and it just is in our faces and we're like, whoa, we didn't see this before. So we are being invited into the new way of being, into the new way of looking at the world, into the new way of seeing who we really are underneath the surface. And they represent transitional points. The lunar eclipses tend to end things and culminate things very deeply. And the solar eclipses tend to begin things from imagine you have your computer and you turn it off and you turn it back on, and that's what an eclipse is. It's a great big reset to your computer system, to your technological system. That is what it can be. Now, solar eclipses are, if you see them, then they're not the best omens out there. They're not the best kind of things. They're kind of seen as bad omens, bad ways of being. With all those kind of things going on with that. And maybe this eclipse will tell me, just kind of looking up where in Leo, like that solar eclipse in Leo, like needing external validation with saying, okay, on this day, I'm not going to get external validation. I'm going to validate myself. I'm going to feel okay inside my own skin with, what's going on and what I know to be true. Breaking away from those tendencies and needing acknowledgement and recognition and all those kind of things like that. That's what I discussed on the Leo solar eclipse video. But the sun and moon interacting with the nodes of fate and destiny, interacting with the north node and the south node. That's what the sun and moon are doing. Okay, because they're interacting with these nodes. They're shaping the picture. They're shaping the trajectory. And they are interacting with the north node in Pisces and the south node in Virgo. Now, the south node is what feels familiar to us. And, remember, the south node in Virgo is a south node that slaves away, that is a martyr, that is a servant to everybody. Wants to serve, wants to be the one in charge, wants to be the one, doing everything and in control of the whole band and caboodle. The south node is what we are driven to repeat and repeat over and over again. What we are driven to carry out and lay out in our lives over and over again that we just don't find fulfilling because we're continuing to repeat the same storyline and we're not looking at ourselves going, oh, this doesn't work for us. And this whole habit pattern of serving, having to do and produce and do all these things is not working. Whereas the North Node in Pisces says flow, adapt, be very, very fluid, and just being as opposed to doing. I think that's so important. Now, the South Node is what feels familiar to us. Okay, this is what we want to understand. Where we get stuck in unconscious old habit patterns. Old habit patterns that don't seem to serve us anymore. Habit patterns that don't really carry weight for us in our lives anymore to what we are doing. Where do we need to release our grip on the old, release our grip on the familiar, and move into the new age, the new dawn, the new day? And where do we need to evolve into the more Piscean, flowing ways of being, which is that North Node in Pisces? So during this time, we could have been feeling very, very flowy, very, very dreamy and lofty and spacey, that kind of thing. Now, we need to know that we are not human doings. We are human beings. And the Pisces North Node shows up like I am showing up for you by being, as opposed to just doing and fixing everything for you like the Virgo energy. The Pisces is about just flowing, surrendering, trusting the universe. Now we think of the collective with the solar eclipse in Aquarius, because Aquarius rules the collective. Aquarius rules large groups of people, everybody in life, in society, rules communities and this and that. So during this During this eclipse, you could find that you may go into new and unknown territory. You may go into territory that you haven't been in before, that you haven't gone in, because eclipses sort of push you over the edge. They push you into new territory. They push you into new ways of being. And this eclipse is pushing you into what is unknown, what is new, what is revolutionary, and everything like that going on. So, this is really what we have to keep in mind here with this eclipse, is this push and this force and this jolt into the new age, into the new way of being. Now, during this time, we need to embrace what makes us authentically unique and special. Embracing what makes us who we are, what makes us really liberated to be ourselves, fully allowed to shine in our own light, and not being, judged and condemned by the system and by the way of being that limits our own creativity, limits our own freedom of expression. What systems and structures limit us from truly being and being free and being liberated to really, really live at that life in very gorgeous, shining, greater sort of moto ways. Where do we need to be like, be with open-minded souls, open-minded, curious, loving, kind, generous, benevolent souls that can help us to really step into our humanity, that can help us move on our own track, move on our own path, that can help us with being very, very sovereign of, who we are, because now it's time to be who we are and be the unique expression of who we are, and then be with people who support that expression, who support that that like-minded growth, that those ways of being, and being with souls that think alike, souls that have our back, souls that think in the same way that we do, souls that think for very similar terms that we do on that level. Now, we could relate to technology different ways, social media different ways, because it rules cyberspace. And are we all connected through cyberspace? Are we all connected in a unified network of light and love and connection, and exchanging energy and exchanging words, exchanging ideas, looking up posts, commenting on posts, seeing others' opinions, seeing everything go on with what we're doing? Where do we need to relate to social media in all these kind of ways like this, with what is going on? So, because social media is really us creatively expressing, or us contributing our own creative self-expression, our own expression into the collective field, into what is going on collectively, into what is going on with everybody. And what is going on with AI, also artificial intelligence. I think that is also deeply huge with what needs to be in place here, because AI is really taking over right now with all the new AI videos, with all the AI commercials and this and that, and with all the AI, things that are going on in social media, etc. So Aquarius rules AI, artificial intelligence, and during this time we could have seen a lot of AI coming about, and a lot of AI coming to the forefront of our consciousness, of our awareness. And now we are seeing AI and the boom of AI coming out and coming into our place and our niche being. Now, we could form new ways of collaborating. We really, really collaborate with others in very, very deep ways. We really, really collaborate and see, like, I can make friends, I can connect, I can network, I can gather and tribe with like-minded people and exchange ideas and do all this. Like, the Aquarius is about collaborating. Aquarius is about networking and coming together with others and exchanging ideas and doing all this kind of thing. Like, that's what Aquarius is genuinely about. And so how can we connect? How can we form a bond and a close intellectual connection, a close intellectual synergy of sorts with others, collaborating and bonding in those kind of very, very deep, profound kind of ways with how we are really connecting, exchanging ideas. Like, I give my unique ideas for how I want to contribute to society and the collective, and the other person gives their ideas, and we exchange ideas, and we have conversations where we go back and forth between our own ideas, and we share and we receive. It's kind of a back and forth where the person shares what they have in mind that they want to implement with the other person shares with what the other person wants to implement, and we exchange our own ideas, we exchange our own creative visions, our own multifaceted visions with our futuristic vision for our life and how we want to make it happen. Now we can create new paths, new revolutionary paths that we haven't thought before, moving in new directions that we haven't thought before, moving new paths that we haven't gone on before, that are totally divergent, totally new, totally trailblazing, that we're like, we have not gone in this path before. We could really, really break out of these limiting structures that seem to limit us, and we just say, no, I didn't have to be bound by needing the validation of the structure. I can just be free to be myself. And that way you are revolutionizing the pack. And if any insecurities come up, like, oh, I should follow the status quo, I should follow what that is, well, that's just your insecurity talking. That's just your mind, your fear talking. Like, don't let it hold you back from what you authentically want to do in your own self-expression. That's what we need to keep in mind with social media. And hopefully the AI now in the middle of 2026 is not going to let people limit their speech and limit their, what they say and what they do, in their own self-expression. I mean, let's hope that we don't go there. But, we could really create new paths that we move on, that are future-paced and that are future-oriented, that we can see those paths shape and move in very fluid ways, that we are seeing the path sort of move and wind around and go around and meander, and we don't really have control over the path, do we? I mean, do we really, really have control over the path? Have controlling over the path that we are going down and that we are evolving into, that we are saying that this path is the way that it is because it is so very spectacularly just this meandering, evolving path, that we need to really look at it and say, okay, where do we need to move on this path successfully and independently and freely, and where we are not afraid to create the new, not afraid to break out of old structures and rebel. Like I'm doing these videos, like I don't have to be bound to what's going on currently astrologically. I can be bound to the past astrological events. And so, how are you, creating these paths in a way that is forward moving, forward reaching, and all these kind of things like that. Now, will we feel a little bit separated from society, a little bit cut off from society, is where this Aquarius new moon solar eclipse lands for us, is where we feel a little bit cut off from the mainstream, a little bit like the outcast, a little bit like the black sheep, a little bit like the odd one out, so to speak. And we could have felt like the odd one out during this time. Would have felt like all these things bubbling to the surface. And this was a little taste of this Aquarius North Node, Leo South Node transit that we're currently in right now. So where do we feel sort of like we're sort of cut off and we're sort of detached from what society wants from us and all its demands and all its, what it's trying to egg us on to experience and be in our own lives. And so, now we could move in new directions. What are the new revolutionary directions that we could go in, that we can embrace this feeling of separation, that we can embrace this feeling of feeling separated and feeling cut off, where we are revolutionizing and advancing and really changing and recreating and restructuring our own lives to be able to form it for the best minutia. That with this, we could really move in new directions with all that we're doing. And what are those new directions? I mean, what really are we trying to reach towards? What really are we trying to, go towards when it comes to how we want to advance our path? What kind of revolutions do we want to start in our life? What kind of new trends do we want to start in our life? What kind of new paths do we want to go down that can stimulate all this fun and all this joy and all this, this individuality, this authenticity that we want to create with being our own sovereign selves? Now, Aquarius values authentic connection, authentic group connection. The question is, are we going along with the group? Are we going along with what the group wants for us? Are we going along with what the group wants in our lives for us in our own lives? Or are we choosing to be our own individual selves? Are we choosing to connect with people who really get us, who really have our backs, who really support us being our most authentic selves? And Aquarius values that deep connection with us being true to who we are and connecting with others who respect us and accept us for who we are. And in turn, we respect and accept them for who they are. And we form this great connection where we are a synergy, or we are a collaboration, we are a cohort, so to speak. We are a bond between each other, between people, where we get each other and we're authentically connecting. We're not holding each other back. We're connecting to each other in all these kind of ways. So clarity could come in with this eclipse, maybe have some flashes of insight that are a little bit intellectual, a little bit cut off, a little bit detached, so to speak, like this newfound clarity that just comes into your awareness, comes into your mind, and just boom, just flashes on you like a laser beam, like a light beam, and it just flashes just like, wow, I just had this download, I just had this revelation, and now I'm just so much more clear, and I want to act on it, and I want to make things happen in my own life and make changes happen because I have this new burst of clarity that I didn't have before. When you get clarity, you experience so much joy in your life because, okay, now I have the clarity, but what are you going to do to act on that clarity? It's like when you get the clarity, you get that vision, you get the way forward, you get that light at the end of the tunnel that tells you, okay, this is the way to go because I had this revelation, and boom, I know where to go now. Like, boom, I'm clear on what I want. I'm clear on what I believe. I'm clear on what I see and perceive of my life and what my values are. Now we can awaken to what has already been pulled away from our lives, because things just fall away from our lives. And that lunar eclipse that we experienced on the 3rd of March may have been a pull away from our lives. That may have been where things ended, where things dramatically came to drastic end, or whatever. Now, there could be new ways of thinking about the future, envisioning the future, certainly, imagining the future in all those kind of ways like that. We could see those new ways of thinking about where we want to go next and what we want to do next come into play here. So thinking about where we want to go in the future. What is the best path to go down? What do we want for our future? What do we want for our collective destiny? And what do we want for that path to really, really shape and form into the molds of ways of being? We can really, really think about what we want for the future in all those very, very specific kind of ways, and we can make it happen in our life. So we can think about new visions, think about new levels of delirium and this and that. So, now, we could find that there's a lot of choices that we're making, and do the choices reflect who we are becoming, who we are molding ourselves into, who we are forming ourselves into being? Do these choices reflect who we truly are and who we are molding ourselves and shaping ourselves into being? Do these choices really reflect all these things, or do they hold us back from feeling and experiencing and living. And do these choices, are these choices based on our limiting beliefs? That's a very, very good question to ask, because are our choices based on our limiting beliefs, or are they based on this liberated belief that I can do anything that feels right? I can do anything that feels authentic to me, and it is allowed to do anything that feels authentic to me. As long as it's coming from a soul-centered place, you can do it. And, that you can do it. And really, if you're doing something wrong, you're doing something wrong. You intend to do the wrong thing, even though deep down you know it, you're just not willing to admit it in your ego. So nobody come to me in a compassionate way saying, okay, you've done wrong in this way. No, because that's basically a message like, you don't want me to express myself in this way. And I'm not okay with that. I'm going to do what's true for me. So thank you very much. But so that could be a thing percolating up for you. Is who you are becoming, who you are turning yourself into, could be really, really huge for you now. And with eclipses, things unfold over time. Things really, really mold themselves and really, really create themselves into being over time, with the things coming down and coming undone with our own lives. With that eclipse, like the seed gets planted at the solar eclipse, and then it just moves forward from there over the coming 6 months, over the coming years, and the story starts to unravel itself. This is the seed that plants the plant, and then over this whole course of the North Node Aquarius, South Node Leo, we're seeing the plant grow and blossom in the whole process of the plant itself. So, we need to think about, with this energy, what life fits you better. That's really, really what I want to ask you. What life fits you better? Is it the old life? Is it the old way of being that you lived out? Is it that old version of you that no longer fits who you are today? Is it that old role that you play in that no longer works for you? Like, what role doesn't work out for you anymore? What role is not fitting you anymore in your life? Even though we're not talking about the Aquarius solar eclipse time, it can be just in general. Like, what role are you outdated? Like, even the Leo solar eclipse coming up on August 12th. Like, what old identity is dying away? Same goes with Aquarius. Like, what role no longer fits who you are becoming, no longer fits your authentic self. And, you can live honestly. You can future pace. Aquarians are futurists. They think ahead of their time. They think ahead of their, perspective with how they view the world, with how they go about viewing the world and seeing the world. Even if you are apart from others, you see the world in a much more honest way, futuristic way, even though you're disconnected from others. So, how can you be futuristic? How can you be very, very Godolton, and and really living out the change that you want to see in the world and embodying that future right here in this moment, right now? You're embodying that future, living out that future, and that is what you are doing. Is when you are, when you are living in that way, you're living in that very, very kind way, with that honest way of being. As I keep circling back to that point again. So, Saturn-Neptune conjunction that occurred on February 20th, which was the very, very first episode of this podcast, adds in another layer of sorts. It adds in this layer of shifts and changes. Remember that Saturn is structure, deals with the structure. Like Saturn represents structures that form our reality. Saturn represents the structures that create our reality. Saturn represents the structures that exist out in the world, governments, institutions, these kind of things like that. It represents boundaries. Saturn is the planet of boundaries. With Saturnian energy, you are setting clear parameters in place. You're setting parameters of what you want to become, who you want to be, and with this, you are creating boundaries, and boundaries can really help you be free, help your peace of mind. Where a mature person sets boundaries with others, they don't people please. They are focused on mature people follow their soul. Mature people, are authentic to themselves. Mature people say no when they mean no, and say yes when they mean yes. Okay. So Saturn represents this boundary, this structure, this wall that has to be put up for my own peace and for me having to, because think about it, it's discipline. Like when you are so disciplined working on a path and moving up a path and being on a certain path and achieving a certain path, you put the discipline in place to say, no, I'm not going to have this, I'm not going to veer away from this course because I have to eat healthy, or I have to continue working at this project, or slaving away at this particular goal, or climbing up the ducks in rows, making sure that those green ducks are in alignment with the red ducks. So you are creating this boundary in place for you, that you're saying no to getting off track, to getting off the path, and you're saying yes to, I'm staying on a certain path, I'm committing, I'm going in a certain direction, and saying no to the path that doesn't work for me anymore, the path that's not in alignment with the discipline that I need to have for myself. And it's also reality. Like Saturn, whenever it comes to play, it brings a reality check, brings a reality sort of state of being. It is reality. Saturn is ground reality. Here or now, you can touch, taste, see what goes on in the physical world. That's reality, and that's what Saturn rules. It's deals with sort of the egoic world that we can find, in a way here. So, this is with Saturn conjunct Neptune at the time, and they're still in the same signs right now. This can be a real coming together of the spiritual idea and action plan. This can be a formation of that grand vision for your life. That grand idea that you have, that is Neptune, because Neptune is the vision. Neptune is the grand idea. And Saturn is the action plan. Saturn is like, okay, I have this idea, I have this vision, but how am I going to manifest it? How am I going to make it ground to reality? How am I going to manifest this in my own present reality? So, this is what we need to really consider with this information, is how we're going to take this spiritual vision and make it concrete. Bring things to their fall, bring things to their completion. Old structures, old boundaries dissolve. We can move it to new structures, new ways of being. With Saturn conjunct Neptune, we see that old stories dissolve. Old ways of being dissolve. Old narratives of our own stability, our own peace, our own security dissolve in a way we can truly be true to ourselves and living out that narrative for what we want to create. And what do we need to say no to in our lives? What do we need to let go goodbye? What have we been, what sort of structure or way of being that we stick to that no longer works for us anymore? We can go in brand new directions. We can find new directions. And we can be true to ourselves during this eclipse. We can know that if we are authentic to ourselves, if we take this action because we genuinely want to take this action and want to take this action step and this action plan, we have consequences for actions. There's going to be these ramifications. There's going to be these repercussions for if we do this, if we plant these plants, then we're going to be reaping these rewards. If we plant peppers, we're going to get peppers. If we plant weeds, we're going to plant weeds. If we plant tomatoes, we're going to get tomatoes. Like, what are we planting in our garden? What are we taking the seeds and we are harvesting them, we are forming them into the ground, and we are moving them up to being that massive plant on the other end that we can act from a place of truth and know that whatever we decide has a consequence to whatever we are doing in our lives. So it's very, very important to understand this at a very, very deep level with how we are going about our lives, with knowing knowing the consequences for our actions, knowing that what we do will result in things as cause and effect. Like all that we put in, all the effort that we put in, all that we make happen will have efforts, on the other end of it. So that's what it can really be in that regard, is having the consequence, having that, where your actions meet reality, meet the, because, like, what are we going to do? Knowing that our actions have impact on the world, have an impact on the world, have an impact on our relationships. Like, if we truly knew that, what would we do? If we were to be totally true and authentic to ourselves. Now, any hidden secrets with the institutions that have come out with Saturn conjunct Neptune is coming out. With these, maybe it came out during this time, as these secrets coming out with these institutions, and there could be a merging of systems and structures with Saturn conjunct Neptune, and things getting exposed, things getting revealed, things getting we're seeing things come out, we're seeing things come to light in the public space, in the public eye, in the public arena, where things are hidden in plain sight, and then we see them just erupt and explode everywhere. So these eclipses occur along the Leo-Aquarius axis. This is the first of these eclipses. We experienced the first back in February. So this is what I'm discussing on this video. The next eclipse will be coming up tomorrow on August 12th, 2026. So, if we have any structure, if we have built any structure, or we know of any structure in our lives that are only about themselves, cannot hold themselves up to be there. If we have any structures that only care about themselves, that are only loving and kind and true to themselves, those structures cannot hold themselves up. Those structures need to crumble down. Those structures need to be dissolved and go down and be released from ourselves. Structures, where the house is going to crumble down. If you have a structure and a system that only cares about its own benefit, its own life, its own experiences that happens, its own, what happens in that structure, what occurs in that way, that benefits, doing things just to benefit itself, then you're going to really, really have a difficult time during this time, because those structures in your life are not going to last for you. Now initiates the Chinese year of the Fire Horse on February 17th. So this is the flavor of 2026, a very unbridled spirit, a year of the unbridled spirit, a year of fire and energy and enthusiasm and passion and all those kind of things going on here. So now it's time to trust our inner guidance and trust what we know to be true about ourselves. Move along the path of our intuition and our soul self. Move on the path of what feels right on a soul level, on an intuitive, spiritual level. And that, my friends, is where we can find the most benefit in our lives. Is where we can we can trust in our guidance. We can trust in our way of being with what we are doing, and how we are doing it, how we're doing it anyway. So we are trusting in our guidance. We're trusting in what we know to be true, what we know to be right, and following our intuition, doing what feels right, doing what feels authentic to us, with following our own intuitive cues. So now we're going to talk about the aspects for this eclipse, new moon solar eclipse. The very first one is the sun in Aquarius, at the very end of the sign square Uranus and Taurus. Uranus was in Taurus at the time. So now we could find that Aquarius is an electric sign. Aquarius brings change. Aquarius brings revelations, revolution. So we could find that that these new changes could feel overwhelming to us, could feel very, very daunting for us, could feel very, very difficult for us in a way, with what we are going through, and we're just being forced into this, this great big change. It just feels like too much to deal with, too much to grapple with. And if we don't actively act on the change, we may be forced to change. And we don't want that. We don't want the universe to force our hand into change, do we? And we want to be willing and free to act on whatever change that we want to act on in our lives. We want to be free to to make the change that we want, to act on the change that feels right for us, and change when it feels right, and respond to the signs, the synchronicities that come by, instead of avoiding it. What we resist persists. If we avoid changing our ways and changing what we're doing, eventually the universe is going to come in and take something away from you. Like, okay, now you've got to change now because I ripped this thing away from you. I disrupted this structure in your life, so now you have to let go of this and change and transform and do something different than you did before. And this is what you're being forced to do and forced to embody when it comes to change. Now you're being faced with this look of doing it. Now, with this, there's also, this need to rebel, this need to prove yourself very, very strongly. We really need to rebel against these certain structures, these certain status quo, these certain ways of being. We need to express yourself so intensely that expressing yourself in a very, very intense, very, very strong-willed way, and expressing yourself in this way creates conflicts with other people. Because you just want to break free so much. You want to be free. You want to be liberated, and you express yourself in this way, and creates this divide, creates this separation, creates this frustration, this tension, because I expressed myself authentically, and the person didn't like it. The person was disapproving of it. This person was rejecting of it, and they weren't having me just expressing my own heart, expressing my own soul's desires. And so when you do this, it could be very, very revealing to people in your personal life. It could be very, very throwing them for a loop, very, very revealing to what they're experiencing. But now we could find that we are, we are finding that expressing ourselves can be done in a very, very tactful, kind, diplomatic way. It doesn't have to be so difficult and so darn troublesome, and where it doesn't hurt our relationships with other people. So there is this need here to prove what you do best, prove what you do, and rebelling against certain structures that limit you. Prove how strong and how independent you are with your own personality, with your own ways of being. That can be what it also is. And so maybe you stick to a stable routine that feels electrifying and stimulating. Maybe sticking to a routine that really, really has your best interest at heart, sticking to a routine that gives you electricity and motivation and energy and vitality and all this kind of thing like that, that is stimulating to you, that does give you stimulant, that does give you juice with all that you are doing. And so, this routine really, really helps you to feel more alive, more vitalized. And so you really, really be living out this routine in very, very strong ways with having this routine that gives you variety, gives you spark, gives you, joy and enthusiasm for life, yet it has stability in there. So what's making you feel restless is the other thing that I want to say to you. What's really, really making you feel on edge, making you feel like you can't express yourself, making you feel restricted in your own life? What's making you feel limited in your own life? We may need to evaluate what is causing chaos in your life, what is causing disruption in your life, and see how that chaos could lead to goodness on the other end, how that chaos could lead to a beautiful end of the rainbow experience. And so now you could evaluate what really makes you a little bit on edge, a little bit antsy, wanting to act, wanting to change a certain structure, and looking at creating better, a better environment for yourself in your own life when it comes to looking at what's not working out for you. What possibly could be altered in order for you to feel more free. What's making you feel a little bit restricted. Sun's quote, Uranus invites you to break free of the restrictions and show the world who you truly are. And Mercury is trine Jupiter. Mercury in Pisces, trine Jupiter in Cancer. This is the water trine. So this is where we are being more spiritually generous. We are being more spiritually giving. We're giving goodwill. We're giving generosity. We are speaking wisdom, speaking spiritual truths. We are inspiring others with wisdom in kind and compassionate ways. This could mean with Mercury trine Jupiter that we have big ideas and grand plans for our life. We have these big ideas for what we want in our lives, what we want to act on in our lives, what we want to do in our lives. And we want to really, really live this out. So what kind of ideas do we want to create in our lives or act on in our lives with plans that we have for ourselves? Now, we may be more open in communicating with others. We're more open and generous in our communication, more benevolent, more optimistic. We're communicating. We're very loving, kind, and honest truths with one another. Where we are being very, very transparent, being very, very open with others and communicating, having conversations, and really, really expanding our mind. Learning new things. Mercury trine Jupiter is great for learning, great for reading, great for studying. Mercury trine Jupiter is that aspect that's great for all things exploration. Mercury trine Jupiter is like, I'm opening up my mind to new subjects, new fields of study, new fields of understanding of my life. And I'm really, really going in those courageous directions in my own life. So that is what I want to discuss about the new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius that happened on February 17th of 2026. I will be back tomorrow and give a 12-sign forecast for what the signs might have benefited from at that time, and going on with more past transits coming up in later videos this month. Anyway, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Cosmic Sky Podcast. Hope you enjoyed, and bye for now.